Hi everyone, welcome to the Afrocentric Woman. Want to share a quick little story time. Um, I wanted to share a quick little story time. Okay, so I knew this couple um several years ago before I ended up having my child. Um, really interesting situation. But anywho, the guy had basically, this was a black couple, and he had basically convinced her to stop going to school. Okay, so he had basically convinced her to stop going to school somehow. He also she took out a student loan and ended up giving it to him for something. I think it was for a car or something. And convinced her basically to leave work because he figured the best thing to do is to just stay home with their child because with childcare she really wasn't gonna be making that much money. So she stayed home and homeschooled her child, and the child was really advanced. Like, this child was reading chapter books at age 3. Like, the child was really advanced. Like, she was taking homeschooling very seriously. And then she got pregnant again. And this guy, he had just started to become so resentful. And I remember being confused at the time, wondering, why are you so disgruntled when this is what you advocated for, this is what you set up, this is what you said would be best for your family, and now every single thing was he was just so disgruntled and angry and penny pinching about everything. Looking outside the relationship, threatening to step out on her or stepping out on her, being involved with different types of porn addictions and all kinds of stuff. And it was just really weird observing all of this at that time and trying to understand what is the problem if this is what you want. Now, in retrospect, in order for this to work, there has to be a couple of things that really matter, okay? If you're gonna go out and work for your family, you have to value what the woman is doing inside the home. I think that his main motivation for her asking her to leave school and work and stay in home is, I think for him, it helped him have a sense of control. And I think initially he really liked that. He didn't want his young, beautiful wife just going around other people, just very insecure. It's coming from a place of insecurity. It's coming from a place of wanting to control. It wasn't coming from a place of wanting to provide a good life. I know this in retrospect now, but you have to value those things. You have to value the homeschool education that the woman is providing. You have to value these extravagant meals that she was making. You have to value the garden and the aquaponics system that this woman set up. You have to value all the home remedies that this woman was concocting to keep the family well. You have to value her getting up in the morning, toting the child, and being pregnant, dropping you off at work because you only have one car, and coming back home, doing everything, and going back to pick you up. And if you don't value those things, then you will be very disgruntled at working, and you will, degrade the woman and treat her badly. And what I noticed is that this guy is a lot of these guys who say that they want a traditional woman, they really don't. I think there's a part of them that like to cosplay, and there's also a part of them that likes the idea of having total control These men don't like to compete, and they're coming from a very insecure place. So they don't have confidence a lot of times that their woman can live in the world and thrive and follow her pursuits and be free to do whatever her heart's desire, because they don't believe in themselves. They don't have confidence in themselves that they are a very competitive man that's offering the best situation for her. So they would prefer for her to be constricted. That's what I can look back at that situation. Like, after I was able to understand the inner workings and the inner confusion of their mindset, it helped me understand, why did you push for this situation and then resent it at the same time? They also are like this around children in general. They will push for the children, but then resent the children when they get here. It's very bizarre. It's very bizarre, and it's hard to follow the logic because there isn't any. But a lot of these guys are the ones actually pushing for the children. They'll say like, "Oh, I didn't want," no, but a lot of times they do. They kind of want them, but they kind of don't. So you just have this really dysfunctional situation. And this is what happens when you don't have clarity. Like, there's no leadership. Obviously, if you're a leader inside your home and you've decided with your spouse, or you propose an idea that this is how we're going to set it up, you're going to stay home with the children, I'm going to work, then you would, take that to the next level. Now, another thing with this guy, I remember him, sort of being disgruntled about his pay, but he would never pursue a raise. He would never pursue a better job within the company. He didn't open up any side hustles. He was just, I have not talked to him in years. But I wouldn't be surprised if he was in the same position. I wouldn't be surprised. Just with the incremental 2%, whatever it is, cost of living raises that they give every year or two, I wouldn't be surprised, because he really didn't have a lot of ambition. His ambition was only about like controlling women, but he never had any ambition as far as career was concerned. Never. So it's interesting just to see these conversations online, or like whenever these guys come out and say what they want. They're like, I want a submissive woman and I want you to go 50-50. And then to think about the various characters in life who have demonstrated that exact same mentality, and actually seeing what are the results of that. Because can you imagine trying to submit to someone who's so confused? Can you imagine to try to follow the leadership of someone who is not ambitious? Can you imagine trying to follow the leadership of someone who changes the plan haphazardly, but they don't have an alternative plan? Or someone who isn't even confident in the decisions that they made? I mean, juxtaposing him and his, dysfunctional role in the house, and comparing that to what a real man would do in the house, is real men are built for pressure. And I think that there is a lot of pressure that men should feel or do feel when they're responsible for children and a wife. Like, that's a lot of responsibility. And it's a lot of pressure. And if you're not about that life, if you're not built for that kind of pressure, you definitely don't need to put yourself in a situation like that. Just like we have to go through 40 weeks of pregnancy and risk our lives bringing another life into the world, and then dedicate your life for another year or two to nourish this child from your body, and then they still are up under you for several more years and everything else. It's a lot of work. I can only imagine the pressure that a real man would feel for being responsible for a wife and children. And a lot of these guys are not built for that kind of pressure. They cave and they fold. They are not built to endure that kind of pressure. They are like little adolescent boys that are not prepared for life. And so when the going gets tough, they get salty, aggressive, passive aggressive. They abandon the post. They go AWOL because they're not built. They're not even built for that. And that's exactly what was happening. He was caving and folding under the pressures of being a leader in the household, being responsible for a growing family. You can reap the benefits and the rewards of having a healthy, thriving family if you put in the work and the dedication to maintaining it. But all too often, they just abandon. They're not ready for it. And that's exactly what happened. But anyway, this guy actually ended up being like a psychopath. He has a lot of problems. I remember him saying that like his mom told him that she should have aborted him or something like that. I don't know, something like that. Or should have never had him, or she wished she would have never had him. On one hand, I feel a lot of compassion for that because I think that would be difficult for a child to hear. But then as a self-preserving woman, I would think that anybody who had like that kind of rearing and they just deformed their personality around not like feeling like they never should have been here, I would imagine that would be a very toxic partner. Just from a practical standpoint, I wouldn't be interested in anybody like that at all. So mental health does matter, and just like psychiatric family like history, you know what I'm saying? Look and see what's going on with their family. Do they have a history of alcoholism, addiction? Do they have a history of, schizo type of psychiatric disorders? I mean, that's something to definitely take into account. That's definitely something to take into account, because those types of formations are not easily remedied. And they might be cute and smiling at you now, but it can get real ugly real fast. So thank y'all for tuning in. I just wanted to share that little story time that popped into my head because I just saw another video basically of this guy, like the proverbial, like, what do you bring to the table? What do you bring to the table? And I noticed a difference between men who are prepared to step into a leadership role in a family versus males who are underdeveloped and would become like, they operate more like adolescents, like they're like the woman's responsibility, like she is responsible for her children and she's responsible for him too, because he's not really an equal partner. He's not a leader. He's like a responsibility. His contributions to the household are so minimal. There's some men who take pride in their home. They take pride in their wife thriving, being healthy, being afforded, different luxuries in life, being able to afford a good lifestyle to their children. And they look on to all of these things and they feel such a sense of pride and they feel such a sense of accomplishment, and they feel a lot of accomplishment through what they're able to achieve through their family. And then there's other, like the underdeveloped males. It's so chaotic and confusing because they don't, on one hand, they don't feel a sense of pride from taking care of their wife, sometimes not even taking care of their children. Um, and then on the other hand, they want you to go 50-50, or you end up doing 80-20 or 90-10, and they don't even know why they're so disgruntled. But if the woman provides a home, if she's the one who's paying half the bills or more than half the bills or whatever, and is able to provide that life, like, what do you have to be proud of as a man? Like, what do you have to be proud of? So you're both happy because you're nesting, but then and that's like the effeminate part of them. And then the part of them, the little minuscule part of masculinity, is disgruntled because they didn't achieve it on their own. They can't look at anything in their life and say, that's all me. I did that. There's literally nothing that they can point to and say, I created that, I did that, I provided that. I don't need my wife's help for that. I don't need my mama's help for that. I don't need anybody's help for that. I did that on me. I can stand on my own 2 feet. Like, oftentimes they can't literally point to anything. And then we have even the credentials. They will not have even achieved any credential, a bachelor's or some type of certificate or anything like that. So they can't even point to an educational achievement and say, well, I achieved this on my own. I worked my way through this and I got this particular credential or degree or certificate. Anywho, thank y'all for tuning in. We'll talk soon. Please like, share, and subscribe.